At dawn, the gallows cast a long shadow across the yard, long enough to reach the cell where Elijah Moore sat counting breaths instead of minutes. The guard jingled keys he would not use. Somewhere a bell waited to ring. And somewhere else, far beyond the courthouse walls, evidence waited, too, unseen, unheard, unallowed. Before we dive into the main story, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell notification button for more interesting video like this. Elijah had been arrested because a woman screamed and a town decided what the scream must mean. This is a true crime story, the kind that doesn't end with justice. It ends with a question. The night the fire broke out on Maple Street, Elijah was walking home from the mill with ash already in his hair from a 12-hour shift. He had receipts in his pocket, calluses on his palms, and a future as narrow as the alley he crossed to save time. When he reached his boarding house, 2 deputies were waiting. They did not ask where he had been. They told him where he was going. The charge, arson and murder, fell from their mouths like a verdict rehearsed. A shopkeeper had died in the flames. A witness claimed to have seen a man like him running. In a town where like him meant black, the phrase was proof enough. Elijah did not resist. He knew better. He knew the law could be a door or a wall, depending on who stood before it. What followed was not an investigation but a performance. A confession appeared 2 days later, typed and signed by counsel, and witnessed only by the men who needed it. Elijah's name was spelled wrong. The time was wrong. The details were wrong. The confession said he'd lit the match with his left hand. Elijah was right-handed. He pointed this out. The deputy smiled and said hands could be switched. The knife they presented had no fingerprints. The accelerant was never tested. The store ledger showing Elijah had been paid late that night, placing him miles away, was misfiled. 3 neighbors swore they saw him at the mill after the fire started. Their statements were lost. The case moved fast. Speed was sold as efficiency. In truth, it was momentum. Once the town leaned, it kept leaning. Elijah's attorney met him for the first time the morning jury selection began. The jury, 12 faces pale as paper, was chosen in an hour. Every black resident in the county was excused for cause. The prosecutor spoke of fear, of order, of restoring peace. He never said Elijah's skin was evidence. He didn't have to. When the defense tried to introduce the receipts, the judge frowned. Relevance? When the defense questioned the confession, the judge sighed. Procedure. When Elijah asked to speak, the judge said later. Later never came. The verdict arrived before the sun set. Guilty. The sentence followed like punctuation. Death. The courtroom exhaled. Cases like Elijah's are not relics, they are lessons. They teach how bias can masquerade as common sense, how shortcuts can be praised as decisiveness, how the absence of evidence can be filled with certainty. They show how power edits the record, what gets preserved, what gets misplaced, what gets believed. They reveal a truth many prefer not to name, that justice is not blind by default. It must be made so, by safeguards, by scrutiny, by people willing to stop the lean. Elijah filed appeals from a cell with peeling paint. Each time, a higher court acknowledged procedural irregularities and denied relief. Each time, the state argued finality. Each time, the clock kept ticking. On the final night, Elijah wrote letters he would never mail. He folded one small enough to hide in his shoe. In it, he listed names, the neighbors, the clerk, the night watchman, people who could tell the truth if asked the right way, if believed. At dawn, the guard returned. The bell rang. The rope waited. Elijah walked with his head up. He asked for water. He asked to pray. He asked, one last time, for the ledger from the mill. They said it was too late. Years later, a graduate student cataloging courthouse boxes found a ledger misfiled behind tax rolls. It showed a payment time stamped after the fire began. A note clipped to it named a witness who had recanted, on paper, before disappearing from the record. The student reported the find. The office logged it. The file was marked under review. Elijah Moore's execution remained lawful. The conviction stood. The case, officially, was closed. Unofficially, it never has been. Because the rope never touched the truth. And somewhere between a scream and a sentence, the law learned to lean, and never leaned back. The box with the ledger sits on a shelf, waiting for someone to open it again. To watch the full video, click the link on our bio, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting hidden historical fact.